What would you do if everything you believed to be true was suddenly ripped away from you, leaving a gaping hole in your heart and a life shrouded in uncertainty? For Jonathan Carter, a wealthy entrepreneur, this question morphed from an abstract concept into a chilling reality when he buried his only daughter, Lily, after a relentless battle with leukemia. The world around him turned grey, his dreams of a vibrant future with her shattered into a million pieces, each one a painful reminder of his loss. The weight of his grief was almost unbearable, dragging him into the depths of despair. Yet, unbeknownst to him, fate had a different plan in store, one that would challenge everything he thought he knew and ignite a desperate quest for redemption. Before continuing, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support is very important. Jonathan was not your typical millionaire. Beneath the polished exterior lay a man haunted by sorrow and guilt. He had poured all his energy into building a successful business, hoping that wealth would somehow fill the void left by Lily's illness. Her laughter, once a symphony of joy in his life, was now a haunting echo that followed him everywhere. He reveled in the luxuries that money could afford him, yet each extravagant purchase felt hollow without his daughter by his side. Friends had become distant, their well-meaning words a constant reminder of his profound loss. In the sprawling mansion that echoed with silence, Jonathan felt the walls closing in on him, suffocating the last shreds of hope he clung to. The city of Los Angeles, with its glitzy facade and relentless pursuit of success, served as both a backdrop and a character in Jonathan's story. As he navigated the streets lined with palm trees and luxury cars, he was acutely aware of the vibrant lives pulsating around him, families laughing, children playing, couples holding hands. Yet for him, the world felt like a cruel stage, where he was the only actor trapped in a tragedy. The city thrived while he merely existed, adrift in a sea of unending sorrow. It was in this hostile environment, teeming with life yet devoid of joy, that his journey of discovery began. One fateful evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the alleyways, Jonathan's path crossed with that of a scrappy girl named Mia. A mere flicker of hope, she emerged from the darkness like a candle fighting against the wind. Her clothes were tattered, and her hair was a tangled mess, yet her eyes sparkled with an unyielding spirit that captivated Jonathan. They were worlds apart, one a millionaire, the other a street child, but in that moment they both shared a profound sense of loss. Mia had lost her family to circumstances beyond her control, while Jonathan had lost his daughter to a disease that had ravaged their lives. As their unlikely friendship blossomed, Jonathan began to unravel the threads of a conspiracy that would shake the very foundations of his existence. Mia revealed that she had seen children disappearing, taken to a clinic that promised miracles but concealed unspeakable horrors. The chill that coursed through Jonathan's veins at her words was suffocating. What if Lily had not been buried? What if she was alive, trapped in a nightmare he could never have imagined? This revelation ignited a flicker of determination within him, a drive to uncover the truth that had been hidden beneath layers of deceit. The main conflict emerged like a storm cloud on the horizon, looming large and threatening to engulf Jonathan in its chaos. As he delved deeper into the shadows, he stumbled upon a web of lies spun by those he had trusted most. Family members had manipulated him, forging documents and orchestrating a facade that had led him to believe his daughter was gone forever. With every piece of evidence he unearthed, Jonathan's heart raced with the duality of hope and despair. Could he really be on the path to reclaiming the daughter he thought he had lost? With Mia by his side, the search for Lily morphed into a crusade against the injustices of a world that had turned a blind eye to the suffering of children. Together, they navigated the treacherous underbelly of the city where power and greed overshadowed compassion. Each encounter with other children, caught in the same web of deceit, tightened the bond between Jonathan and Mia, transforming their friendship into a lifeline. They were not just fighting for Lily, they were battling for every child who had been silenced by the darkness of a corrupt system. As Jonathan faced betrayal from those he once called family, the emotional weight of his journey began to manifest physically. Sleepless nights fueled his determination, but they also drained him, leaving dark circles under his eyes and a weariness that threatened to consume him. The stakes were high. His dreams of reuniting with Lily were constantly met with obstacles that seemed insurmountable. Yet, amidst the turmoil, Jonathan found solace in the unwavering spirit of Mia, whose resilience reminded him of the love he had for his daughter. In the midst of this chaos, Jonathan confronted his own vulnerabilities. The journey was not just about saving Lily, it was about rediscovering himself in the process. Each revelation peeled back layers of grief, exposing the raw emotions he had buried deep within. The fear of failure loomed large, but so did the flicker of hope that fueled his resolve. Would he emerge victorious, reclaiming not only his daughter but also a sense of purpose that had long eluded him? As the narrative unfolded, Jonathan grappled with profound questions about love, loss, and the lengths one would go to for family. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but it was also illuminated by the bonds he formed along the way. With Mia by his side, he was no longer just a grieving father. He was a warrior, fighting against the odds for the love that had once defined his existence. In this emotional whirlwind, the story of Jonathan Carter became not just a tale of loss, but a testament to the power of love, resilience, and the unbreakable spirit of those who dare to fight for what is right. Jonathan's determination to uncover the truth about Lily's fate propelled him into a world he had only glimpsed from a distance. The first hurdle came swiftly as he and Mia began their investigation. One evening, as they scoured the city for leads, they stumbled upon a dilapidated building tucked away in a forgotten corner. Rumors swirled around this place, a clinic that promised miracles but whispered dark secrets. The air was thick with tension as they approached, Jonathan's heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. Inside, the atmosphere was suffocating. A grim receptionist sat behind a desk, cluttered with paperwork, her demeanor cold and indifferent. As Jonathan approached her, he felt the weight of the world pressing down upon him. He asked about the children and their fates, but her dismissive attitude only fueled his frustration. "We deal with life and death here," she said, her voice flat. "You wouldn't understand." The words stung, igniting a fire within him. But as he pushed back, demanding answers, he realized he was stepping into a territory fraught with danger, far beyond anything he had anticipated. Mia, sensing his escalating anger, pulled him aside. "Jonathan, we need to be careful. They won't take kindly to nosy parents." Her concern was palpable, but Jonathan was blinded by desperation. He had to know if Lily was alive, even if it meant facing the darkest corners of his grief. Days turned into weeks as they gathered more information, but every lead seemed to lead them further into a labyrinth of corruption. They discovered that the clinic was a front for human trafficking, a chilling operation that preyed on vulnerable children. Jonathan's heart sank, realizing that the very institution he had trusted during Lily's illness could be involved in something so heinous. The emotional toll was staggering. The guilt of having placed his faith in a system that now appeared to be nothing more than a predator weighed heavily on his conscience. As they delved deeper, Jonathan felt the first tremors of doubt. What if he was too late? What if Lily was just another nameless victim lost in the shadows? The thought gnawed at him, a relentless whisper that threatened to drown out the hope he had been clinging to. In those moments of despair, he often found himself staring into the abyss, questioning the very foundations of his belief in justice and the goodness of humanity. Mia, however, became a beacon of resilience amid the storm. Her unwavering spirit encouraged him to push through the darkness. "You have to believe, Jonathan. We can't let them win," she urged, her voice steady. But Jonathan's facade of strength began to crack, revealing the vulnerability lurking beneath. He realized that he was not just fighting for Lily. He was fighting against his own demons, fear, guilt, and the haunting memory of his daughter's laughter. It wasn't long before their investigation drew the attention of those who wished to keep the truth buried. One night, as they left a meeting with an informant, they were ambushed. A van screeched to a halt next to them, and masked figures spilled out, their intentions clear. Jonathan's heart raced as he grabbed Mia's hand, instinctively pulling her close. This was no longer just a search for his daughter, it was a battle for their very lives. They managed to escape, but the encounter left them shaken. The taste of fear mixed with adrenaline, and Jonathan realized that the stakes were higher than he had imagined. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him, for Mia's safety now intertwined with his quest. "I can't drag you into this," he said, his voice trembling. "You deserve a life free from danger." Mia met his gaze, defiance shining in her eyes. "And you think I'll just walk away? I lost my family, Jonathan. You're my family now. We fight together." Her words struck a chord deep within him. In that moment, he understood that their bond had evolved into something profound, an alliance forged in the crucible of shared pain and determination. They sought refuge in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, a temporary hideout that provided a semblance of safety. As they settled in, Jonathan felt the exhaustion wash over him. He was a man at war with himself, battling not only external enemies, but also the ghosts of his past. The memories of Lily danced through his mind, intermingling with images of Mia, who embodied the hope he thought he had lost. In the dim light of the warehouse, they began to strategize. "We need to find someone who can help us," Jonathan said, his voice steadying as he spoke. "Someone with connections." Mia nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I know a guy. He's been around the block, knows the ins and outs of this city, but he's not someone we can trust blindly." As they debated the risks, Jonathan's thoughts drifted to the moral implications of their journey. They were treading on dangerous ground, and the line between right and wrong blurred with every decision. He questioned whether their pursuit of justice justified the risks they were taking, especially if it meant putting Mia in harm's way. The next day, they met with Mia's contact, a man named Victor, whose reputation was as murky as the shadows he operated in. He was a rough-edged figure, with a past that hinted at both cunning and cruelty. Jonathan felt a surge of unease as Victor regarded them with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. "You're after something dangerous, aren't you?" he said, his voice gravelly. "We're looking for children," Jonathan replied, his determination evident. "Children who have gone missing." Victor's eyes narrowed, assessing them. "You two don't know what you're getting into. This isn't some fairy tale. The people you're dealing with don't play nice." Jonathan felt the familiar weight of doubt creeping back. Could he trust Victor? The fear of betrayal loomed large, but desperation pushed him forward. "We have to try," he insisted, his voice firm. "I can't let fear dictate my actions anymore." Victor smirked, the glint of amusement matching the darkness in his eyes. "It's a bold move, Carter. Just know that the higher you climb, the harder the fall. As they left the meeting, Jonathan's mind raced with questions. What if they were stepping into a trap? What if Victor was playing them for fools? But as he glanced at Mia, her resolve unwavering, he found a flicker of strength. They were in this together, bound by a shared mission that transcended the fear of the unknown. Yet, as their investigation continued, betrayal reared its head once more. A trusted ally, someone Jonathan believed had his back, turned out to be an informant for the very people they were trying to expose. The revelation hit him like a punch to the gut, a painful reminder that trust was a currency in short supply in this treacherous world. In the fallout, Jonathan felt the walls closing in again. The emotional toll was devastating. He questioned his judgment and his ability to navigate this dark underbelly of society. The realization that he had been misled left him grappling with a profound sense of betrayal, not just from others, but from within himself. His initial optimism began to wane, replaced by a gnawing fear that he was losing sight of his goal. Was he truly equipped to save Lily? Or was he merely a man clinging to the remnants of a dream that was slipping further away? Mia, sensing his turmoil, reached out to him as they regrouped. "Jonathan," she said softly, her voice cutting through the fog of despair. "We can't lose hope. We're closer than we think." But Jonathan struggled to believe her. The weight of their circumstances felt insurmountable, the shadows closing in around him. "What if we've gone too far?" he whispered, his voice cracking. "What if it's too late?" Mia's eyes bore into his, fierce and unwavering. "It's never too late. Not for us. We have to keep fighting, keep searching, for Lily and for every child who deserves a chance." In her words, Jonathan found a flicker of hope rekindled, a reminder of the bond they had forged in the crucible of their shared pain. He realized that despite the betrayals and setbacks, they were not alone in this fight. As they prepared to face the next chapter of their journey, he understood that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges that would test their resolve, but it was a path they would walk together. The world outside remained a chaotic whirlwind, but within Jonathan a new fire ignited. He could no longer afford to waver in his belief. He was not just a father searching for his daughter, he was a man who had rediscovered his purpose, ready to confront the darkness with the light of his love and determination. Together, with Mia by his side, they would face whatever lay ahead, unyielding in their quest for justice, redemption, and the hope of reclaiming all they had lost. As Jonathan and Mia settled into their temporary hideout, the weight of their precarious situation pressed heavily on their shoulders. Despite the flicker of hope ignited by their shared determination, the challenges ahead loomed larger than ever. In the days that followed their unsettling encounter with Victor, Jonathan faced a new wave of uncertainty. The threat of betrayal still hung in the air, and the realization that someone they had trusted was feeding information to their enemies gnawed at him. The paranoia seeped into every crevice of his mind, clouding his judgment and straining his focus. Each creak of the warehouse felt like a warning. Every shadow seemed to harbor a potential threat. Mia, sensing his growing distress, tried to ground him. "We need to stick to the plan," she urged, her brow furrowed with concern. "We can't let fear take control." But Jonathan's heart raced with conflicting emotions. He felt the familiar pull of desperation, yet alongside it was a burgeoning resentment towards the very world that had conspired against him. The clinic, the betrayal, and now the ever-looming danger, each twist in their journey reinforced his internal battle. He was fighting not just for Lily, but for a sense of justice that seemed to slip further from his grasp with every passing day. That night, as they pored over maps and contacts, an unexpected knock echoed through the warehouse. Jonathan's instincts kicked in. Adrenaline surged as he motioned for Mia to stay back. The door creaked open, revealing a disheveled figure, Victor. He looked more ragged than before, and the air around him buzzed with urgency. "We need to talk," he said, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting an ambush. "What do you want?" Jonathan demanded, his voice low and cautious. The betrayal still loomed large in his thoughts. He had no reason to trust the man who had once promised them answers. Victor stepped inside, lowering his voice. "I'm here to help, but you have to understand. Things have changed. The people you're up against are scrambling. They know you're looking for the kids, and they're not going to let you take them back."
"Why should we believe you?" Jonathan challenged, the bitterness of betrayal still fresh.
"Because I have information that can help you both," Victor replied, his eyes locking on to Jonathan's with an intensity that made him pause. "But it's dangerous. You need to trust me, at least for now."
Mia stepped forward, her determination shining through the fear that clung to Jonathan. "What do you know?"
Victor took a deep breath, his demeanor shifting from cocky to grave. "There's a shipment planned for tonight. Children being moved from one location to another. If you want to find Lily and the others, this is your chance." The weight of his words settled heavily in the room, igniting a flicker of hope in Jonathan's chest. Yet alongside that hope was a gnawing dread. What if this was another trap? What if they were walking straight into a snare laid by the very people they sought to expose? As they debated the merits of Victor's information, Jonathan felt the tension rise. The possibility of saving Lily was tantalizing, but the risk was palpable. Could he bear the weight of another failure? The ghosts of his past whispered doubts, memories of moments where he had felt powerless, echoed in his mind. "Jonathan, we can't let this slip away," Mia urged. "We have to take the risk for the kids."
Her words stirred something deep within him. He had fought so hard to reclaim his daughter. To falter now would mean losing her forever. "Okay," he relented, his voice firm, "but we go in prepared. No mistakes this time."
As they set their plan in motion, Jonathan felt a surge of determination. Together with Mia, they would face the storm ahead. Yet, even as they plotted their course, Jonathan was keenly aware of the emotional toll this journey had taken on both of them. The once bright spark of hope was now dimmed by the shadows of doubt and fear. When night fell, they slipped into the darkness, guided by the faint light of their flashlights and the adrenaline coursing through their veins. The location Victor had provided was an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, eerily similar to their own hideout. As they approached, Jonathan felt the weight of uncertainty settle back in. "What if it's a setup?" he whispered to Mia, the tension palpable in the air. "We'll adapt," she replied, her voice steady. "We've come too far to turn back now." Inside, they found themselves in a maze of crates and shadows. The air was thick with the scent of dust and neglect, but the urgency of the moment propelled them forward. As they crept deeper into the warehouse, they heard muffled voices. Somewhere, children were waiting. But just as they prepared to move in, a sudden noise shattered the silence. The door swung open and a group of men entered, their faces obscured by masks. Jonathan's heart sank. The reality of their situation hit him like a cold wave. They had walked straight into a den of wolves. "Get back!" he shouted, instinctively pushing Mia behind him. But it was too late. The men had spotted them, and chaos erupted. In the ensuing struggle, Jonathan felt the burn of adrenaline and fear as he fought against the odds. Each punch thrown and every grappling move was a dance with despair. But he was not alone. Mia fought fiercely beside him, her determination a fierce beacon in the darkness. But as more figures emerged from the shadows, Jonathan realized the odds were stacked against them. They were outnumbered, and the weight of their mission bore down on him. In that moment, doubt threatened to consume him once more. Had he put Mia in danger for a futile cause?
Just as the tide seemed to turn against them, a loud crash echoed through the warehouse. The entrance burst open as police officers stormed in, drawn by the commotion. The attackers scattered, and Jonathan felt a rush of relief wash over him. They were saved, at least for now.
But as the officers secured the area, Jonathan's heart sank again. They had come so close, yet the children were still missing. "We need to find them," he urged an officer, desperation edging his voice. But the officer shook his head, his expression grim. "We have to secure the area first. Are you two all right?"
Jonathan felt the frustration boil within him. "We don't have time for this. There are kids in here."
Mia placed a hand on his arm, grounding him. "Jonathan, we'll find them. We just need to stay focused." As the chaos settled, Jonathan realized that while they had escaped with their lives, the battle was far from over. The emotional toll of the night weighed heavily on him, and the thought of Lily still trapped somewhere in the darkness gnawed at his heart.
Defeated but not broken, they regrouped outside the warehouse. The police were gathering information, and Jonathan felt the enormity of their situation. They had been dealt a blow, but within him the fire still burned. He had to keep fighting, not just for Lily, but for every child who deserved a chance at life, freedom, and hope.
As they walked away from the chaos, Jonathan reflected on the bond he had forged with Mia. Their friendship had been tested in ways he never anticipated, but through every challenge they had emerged stronger. He had learned to trust again, not just in others, but in himself. Yet, as they stepped into the uncertain future, Jonathan sensed a turning point on the horizon. The path ahead would undoubtedly be fraught with danger, but with every heartbeat he felt the weight of purpose settle in. They were not finished yet. Together they would rise from the ashes of betrayal and despair, ready to confront whatever lay ahead, and this time they would do it with the unyielding strength of their shared hope. As they retreated from the chaotic scene outside the warehouse, the weight of their failure pressed down on Jonathan like a physical force. The police had secured the area, but the children remained missing, and the thought of Lily lost somewhere in the darkness gnawed at his insides. He felt as if he were drowning in despair, the flickering hope they had clung to now extinguished. In the dim light of the street lamps, Jonathan's mind raced, replaying what had just happened. The fight, the noise, the masked figures, they had come so close. Yet the bitter taste of defeat lingered, souring his thoughts. He glanced at Mia, who was scanning the police activity with narrowed eyes, her jaw clenched tight. He could see the frustration etched on her face. "Are you okay?" he asked, trying to gauge her emotional state.
"I'll be fine," she replied, but her voice lacked conviction. "We just need to regroup and find another way."
Jonathan nodded, but beneath his facade of calm, turmoil churned. He had always prided himself on being the protector, the one who would do anything to save Lily. But now, with every failed attempt, that role felt more like a burden he was incapable of shouldering. He had let her down, and the weight of that realization was crippling.
As they walked away from the scene, a thought struck him with the force of a lightning bolt. What if the kids weren't just being moved for escape? What if they were being sold? The realization sent a shiver down his spine. The gravity of the situation intensified. This was no longer just about rescuing Lily. It was about stopping a monstrous crime that endangered countless lives. "Jonathan, are you listening?" Mia's voice broke through his spiraling thoughts. "Yeah, sorry. Just thinking."
"About what?" she pressed, her concern palpable.
The kids! I don't think they're just being moved. I think they're being sold.
Mia's eyes widened, and Jonathan could see the gears turning in her mind. If that's the case, we have to move fast. Can't let this go on any longer. Right. But how? He replied, feeling the weight of hopelessness creep back in. We've tried everything, and look where it's gotten us. Mia stopped and turned to face him, her expression fierce. We can't give up now, not when we're so close. In that moment, Jonathan felt a shift within himself. He looked into her eyes, full of determination and strength, and realized that he had been wallowing in self-pity when he should have been channeling that energy into action. He had to lead, not just for Lily, but for Mia, for every child out there who deserved a chance. Okay, he said, his voice steadying. Let's rethink our approach. We need to find out where they're headed and who's running this operation.
They moved to a nearby cafe, the dim lighting providing a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Jonathan pulled out his phone, determined to leverage the connections he had. He began reaching out to contacts, piecing together information like a puzzle. Each call brought him a step closer to understanding the network they were up against.
As the hours passed, Jonathan felt a resurgence of energy. The adrenaline surged through him, fueling his resolve. He was no longer just a father trying to save his daughter. He was a warrior, stepping into the fray, ready to dismantle the system that preyed on the vulnerable. Suddenly, Mia leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. I think I've found something. Jonathan's heart raced as he turned to face her. She had pulled up a map on her phone with a location highlighted. This is where shipments have been reported. It's a warehouse on the outskirts of town, similar to the one we just left.
Jonathan studied the map, a plan forming in his mind. If we're right, this could be our best chance yet. We can set up surveillance, gather evidence, and then inform the authorities. We need to be smart about this. Mia nodded, her eyes sparkling with renewed hope. Let's do it. We'll gather everything we can, and when the time is right, we'll strike.
But as the plan crystallized, Jonathan felt a creeping sense of dread. The stakes were higher than ever, and the risks were daunting. They were diving headfirst into the lion's den, and the consequences of failure were unthinkable. Are you sure you're ready for this? He asked, searching her expression for any hint of hesitation. I'm ready, she replied firmly. We've come this far together. I won't back down now. Jonathan felt a rush of gratitude for Mia's unwavering support. She had become more than just a friend. She was a partner in this fight, someone who shared his vision for justice. They had forged a bond through shared suffering, and now that bond would be their strength. As they made their arrangements and gathered supplies, Jonathan faced a critical moment of reflection. He had once been consumed by fear and doubt, but now he felt a clarity wash over him. The past failures no longer defined him. They were lessons that had shaped his resolve. He was no longer just a father of a missing child. He was a force of change. When the sun began to rise, casting a warm glow over the horizon, Jonathan found himself filled with a renewed sense of purpose. He and Mia were ready to take the fight to the enemy, and with every step they took toward that warehouse, he felt the weight of his fears lift. Together they would confront the darkness that threatened to swallow them whole. They would rescue Lily and every other child caught in the web of exploitation. And this time they were armed not just with hope, but with the knowledge that they were not alone in this battle. The turning point had arrived, and with it came the promise of a new beginning. The road ahead would be fraught with peril, but Jonathan and Mia were prepared to face whatever challenges lay in their path. They had transformed their despair into a powerful driving force, and the fight for justice was about to ignite in ways they had never imagined. As Jonathan and Mia approached the warehouse on the outskirts of town, the air thickened with tension. The early morning light cast long shadows, and Jonathan could feel the weight of what lay ahead pressing heavily on his chest. Each step felt like a countdown to a confrontation he had both anticipated and dreaded. Mia, walking beside him, was a beacon of determination. He admired her resolve, but he couldn't shake the nagging doubts that flickered in his mind. What if this was another dead end? What if they walked into a trap? He had failed once before, and the fear of repeating that failure loomed large. "Jonathan," Mia said, breaking his reverie. "You okay?" "Just thinking," he replied, forcing a smile. "About the plan." She nodded, but he could see the concern in her eyes. "We've got this. We know what to look for, and we're not alone." That was true. They had gathered a small group of allies, people who had been affected by the same darkness they were fighting against. A local activist named Emma had joined their cause, bringing with her a wealth of knowledge about the underground networks in the city. She had been a guiding light, helping them navigate the complexities of the situation. As they approached the warehouse, Jonathan felt a sense of camaraderie with Mia and Emma. Their differences, Mia's fierce determination and Emma's strategic thinking, had merged to create a formidable force. Jonathan realized that he was no longer just battling for Lily. He was fighting for a community that had come together in the face of adversity. "Emma, what's the plan?" he asked as they reached a vantage point overlooking the warehouse. Emma unfolded a map, her finger tracing the layout. "There are multiple entry points, but we need to be cautious. They could have guards, or worse, we should split up to cover more ground." Jonathan's heart raced at the thought of splitting up. The fear of losing someone else gripped him. "Are you sure that's the best approach?" Mia placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We can't be afraid. We have to be smart and brave. We've come too far to turn back now." Jonathan inhaled deeply, grounding himself. He thought of Lily, of her laughter, her smile, the way she looked up at him with trust. He couldn't let her down again. "Okay, we split up, but we stick to the plan. If anything goes wrong, we regroup here." As they prepared to move, Jonathan felt a swell of hope. He was not just a father anymore, he was part of a movement, a fight against injustice that was bigger than himself. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. Mia's voice broke through his thoughts again. "Remember, we're doing this for the kids, for Lily."
The mention of his daughter sparked a fire within him. He was ready to face whatever demons awaited them inside that warehouse.
They moved quietly, their footsteps barely making a sound on the gravel. Jonathan felt the adrenaline coursing through his veins, heightening his senses. As they approached the entrance, a sudden noise echoed from within, causing his heart to skip a beat. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. Mia nodded, her expression serious. "It sounded like voices. We need to be careful." Just then, Emma pulled out her phone, her eyes widening. "Guys, I just got a message. There's been a tip-off. The police are on their way."
Jonathan's stomach dropped. "We don't have much time then. We need to move."
They pushed through the door, entering a dimly lit corridor. The smell of dampness and something acrid filled the air. Jonathan's heart raced as they crept deeper inside, their breaths synchronized in a shared rhythm of tension. Suddenly they heard laughter, deep, menacing laughter that echoed off the walls. Jonathan's pulse quickened as they approached a large room at the end of the corridor. Peering in through a small window, his heart sank. Inside, a group of men surrounded a makeshift table, stacks of cash and small, frightened figures huddled together in the corner. Jonathan's breath caught in his throat as he recognized the unmistakable faces of missing children, Lily among them. "Jonathan," Mia whispered urgently, pulling him back from the window. "What do we do?" He felt the air leave his lungs. The sight of Lily, his Lily, was both a blessing and a curse. It ignited an anger within him, but it also left him paralyzed with fear. "We have to get them out," he finally managed. "Okay, but how?" Mia pressed, her eyes searching his for a plan.
Jonathan's mind raced and he remembered the words of one of his old mentors. In moments of crisis, trust your instincts. Gathering his courage, he turned to his friends. "We create a distraction. Mia, you and Emma stay back and get ready to cover me. I'll try to draw them out."
"Are you crazy?" Emma said, her voice tense. "That's too dangerous." "I can't just stand here and do nothing," Jonathan shot back, his heart pounding. "I won't leave them behind."
Mia stepped forward, her expression fierce. "Then I'm going with you. We're in this together."
Jonathan hesitated, but the look in her eyes was resolute. "Okay, but stay close. We need to be quick."
They moved to the side, Jonathan's heart hammering in his chest. He spotted a stack of crates nearby. "I'll make some noise over there. When they come to check it out, you guys go in from the other side." With a swift motion, he grabbed a nearby metal pipe and struck it against the crates, creating a loud clang that reverberated through the warehouse. The laughter inside ceased abruptly, replaced by shouts of confusion.
"Who's there?" one of the men barked.
Jonathan's heart raced as he darted back into the shadows. He could hear footsteps approaching, and he knew he had only moments before the men would investigate.
"Now!" he hissed to Mia and Emma, who nodded and slipped into the room. As Jonathan peered through the doorway, he saw Mia and Emma move with precision, their determination palpable. They were a force to be reckoned with, and for the first time, Jonathan felt a sense of unity, a bond forged through shared risks and a common goal. But just as they made their move, an unexpected figure appeared at the entrance. A man, tall and imposing, with a sinister grin, blocked their path. Jonathan's blood ran cold as he recognized him from the surveillance photos they had gathered, the ringleader of the operation. "Thought you could sneak in here, did you?" the man taunted, his eyes glinting with malice.
Jonathan's instincts kicked in and he launched himself forward, fueled by desperation and anger. "Get away from them!" The ringleader laughed, stepping aside as Jonathan barreled past him. "You think you can save them? You're too late."
In that moment, Jonathan felt a rush of clarity. The ringleader's words echoed in his mind, but he refused to let despair take hold. Instead, he focused on the children, on Lily.
"Let them go," he shouted, his voice steady despite the turmoil within.
But the man merely smirked, gesturing to the children huddled in the corner. "Why would I do that? They're worth more than you could ever imagine."
Jonathan's heart sank, but he refused to give in. He turned to Mia and Emma, a fierce determination igniting within him. "We can't let him win. We fight."
The ringleader watched with amusement as Jonathan and his friends stood their ground. But what he didn't anticipate was the strength of their bond, their refusal to be broken. In that moment of confrontation, Jonathan felt the weight of his past failures lift. He had faced his doubts, gathered his allies, and now he was ready to fight, not just for Lily, but for every child who had been silenced. As the ringleader stepped forward, a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. He had underestimated them. Jonathan seized the opportunity, rallying Mia and Emma to his side. They moved as one, a united front against the darkness that threatened to engulf them. And as they launched into the fray, Jonathan realized that this battle was not just about rescue. It was about reclaiming their power, their voices, and their futures. Together, they would confront the evil that had held sway for far too long, and together they would prevail. The final confrontation had begun, and Jonathan was ready to face whatever came next.
The moment hung in the air, charged with an electric tension that felt palpable. Jonathan, Mia, and Emma stood shoulder to shoulder facing the ringleader, who wore a twisted smile, confident in his control over the situation. The shadows of the warehouse flickered, as if mirroring the internal chaos swirling within Jonathan.
"Let them go!" Jonathan demanded, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his insides. "You're outnumbered." The ringleader chuckled, a low, mocking sound that reverberated through the cavernous space. "Outnumbered? You think that matters? These kids are worth more to me than all of you combined. You're nothing but a distraction."
In that moment, Jonathan faced the greatest challenge of his life. It wasn't just the physical threat posed by the ringleader and his men. It was the weight of his past failures, of feeling powerless to protect Lily when it mattered most. But he had learned, over the course of this harrowing journey, that power came not from brute strength, but from unity and courage. He glanced at Mia and Emma, their eyes filled with determination, and he felt a surge of resolve.
"Maybe we're nothing to you," Jonathan said, his voice rising with a newfound confidence, "but we're everything to them." He gestured to the children huddled in the corner, their wide eyes reflecting fear and hope. "We're not backing down." The ringleader's smirk faltered for an instant, but he quickly regained his composure. "Foolish sentiment. You'll regret this." Before Jonathan could react, the ringleader lunged forward, attempting to shove Jonathan aside. But Jonathan was ready. He sidestepped and seized a nearby metal chair, swinging it toward the ringleader. The chair flew through the air, clattering against the concrete floor, and the man stumbled back, momentarily disoriented. "Now!" Jonathan shouted, and Mia and Emma sprang into action, moving with a fluid precision that surprised even him. Mia rushed to the children, urging them to stay low, while Emma circled around, her eyes scanning for any additional threats. The ringleader regained his footing, fury etched on his face. "You think you can save them? You're all going to regret this." He gestured to his men, who were now scrambling to respond to the chaos. Jonathan felt his heart race. The stakes had never been higher. He was no longer just fighting for Lily. He was fighting for every child who had been trapped in a cycle of fear and exploitation. The lessons he had learned about trust, unity, and the strength that comes from fighting alongside those you care for flared to life within him. "Together!" he cried, and the three of them formed a tight circle, ready to defend the children with everything they had. The ringleader's men charged forward, and Jonathan found himself in the thick of the fray. Emma's strategic thinking came into play as she deftly maneuvered around the room, using the furniture as cover and directing the children to safety. Mia fought valiantly beside him, her fierce determination transforming into a palpable force. Jonathan felt the adrenaline coursing through him as he faced one of the men head-on. The fight was brutal, but he danced on the edge of fear, channeling it into every punch and kick. The echoes of his past failures faded, replaced by a fierce resolve to protect those he loved. As the chaos unfolded, Jonathan caught a glimpse of Lily, her eyes wide and terrified. For a fleeting moment, time seemed to freeze, and he felt a wave of despair wash over him. What if he failed again? But then he remembered her smile, her laughter, the reason he was fighting. It ignited a fire within him that pushed him forward. "Lily, I'm here!" he shouted, his voice breaking through the din of chaos. "Stay with Mia! You're safe!"
Her eyes met his, and for a moment the world around them faded. She nodded, her expression shifting from fear to determination, and Jonathan felt a surge of hope.
But the ringleader was back on his feet, his rage palpable. He barreled toward Jonathan, fists raised, and in that moment, Jonathan realized this was it, the climactic confrontation he had been preparing for. "Enough of this!" the ringleader bellowed, swinging wildly. Jonathan ducked just in time, feeling the rush of air as the man's fist narrowly missed him. He could sense the shift in the atmosphere. This was the moment that would define not only their fight, but also his journey. With every ounce of strength he had left, Jonathan launched himself at the ringleader, tackling him to the ground. They rolled, grappling for dominance, and Jonathan could feel the weight of the world pressing down on him. "Why do you care?" the ringleader spat, struggling against Jonathan's grip. "They're just tools for profit." Jonathan's breath came in ragged gasps. "They're children. They deserve a chance, a life free from fear." And in that moment, Jonathan understood. This fight was not just physical. It was a battle for humanity, for compassion, for the innocence that had been stolen from these children.
With a surge of adrenaline, he pinned the ringleader down, his hands gripping the man's collar. "You will not win, not today."
A noise erupted from behind him. Mia and Emma had pushed forward, their resolve unwavering. Together they had managed to corner the remaining men, forcing them into retreat. The ringleader's eyes flickered with fear, and Jonathan could see the realization dawning on him. He was outmatched not by brute force, but by the unbreakable bond of those willing to stand against him. With a final surge of energy, Jonathan rose to his feet, still holding the ringleader down. "It's over! You're finished!" As the sound of sirens echoed in the distance, the ringleader's bravado crumbled. He glared at Jonathan, his expression shifting from anger to a desperate plea for escape. "You think this is the end? There are others. You won't stop this."
But Jonathan met his gaze with unwavering strength. "We will. As long as we stand together, we will fight."
And with that, the police burst through the doors, swiftly apprehending the ringleader and his men. Jonathan felt a wave of relief wash over him as the officers secured the perimeter, and he turned to see Mia and Emma by his side, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. But it was Lily's voice that broke through the haze of victory. "Daddy!" She rushed forward, and Jonathan knelt to embrace her, the warmth of her small body igniting a sense of peace he had longed for. "I'm here, sweetheart. I've got you." "You're safe," he whispered, tears streaming down his face as he held her tightly. As the chaos subsided and the children were escorted to safety, Jonathan felt a profound sense of closure. They had faced their greatest challenge, not just as individuals, but as a united front. The journey had tested him, but it had also transformed him. He had learned that true strength lies in community, in standing together against the darkness, and in never giving up hope.
The emotional weight of the moment bore down on him, but it was a weight he was ready to carry. They had fought for something greater than themselves, and as he looked around at his allies, Mia, Emma, and Lily, he knew they had only just begun.
Together, they would continue to confront the darkness, reclaim their community, and ensure that no child would ever have to suffer in silence again. The battle was far from over, but with each step forward, Jonathan felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had faced the storm, and together they would emerge stronger, ready to fight for justice and a brighter future. As the police secured the ringleader and his men, the warehouse, once a scene of chaos and fear, transformed into a sanctuary of relief and hope. Jonathan held Lily tightly, her small frame shaking against him, but he could feel the warmth of her body and the rhythm of her heartbeat grounding him. The sirens and shouts of officers surrounded them, but in that moment all he could focus on was the fact that she was safe. Mia and Emma approached, their faces flushed with adrenaline but also relief. "We did it," Mia said breathlessly, her eyes shining with pride. "We actually did it." Jonathan nodded, still holding Lily. "We did it together," he corrected, glancing at Emma, whose fierce determination had not only helped them navigate the chaos, but had also inspired the children to find their own courage. In the aftermath, as the officers began escorting the rescued children out, Jonathan felt a profound sense of responsibility settle over him. He had not only fought for Lily, he had fought for all the children who had been silenced and exploited. This realization weighed heavily upon him, but it also ignited a fierce determination to ensure that their victory was not just a momentary reprieve, but a catalyst for change. As they stepped outside, the cool night air washed over them, and Jonathan breathed deeply, allowing the gravity of the evening to sink in. The adrenaline began to fade, replaced by exhaustion and relief. In the distance, he could hear the voices of the children, laughter beginning to break through their earlier terror. It was a sound he had longed to hear, and it filled him with hope. Mia, standing beside him, spoke softly. "We need to make sure this doesn't happen again. There are still kids out there who need our help." Her voice was filled with conviction, and Jonathan could see the spark of purpose igniting in her eyes. "Absolutely," Emma chimed in, her brow furrowed with determination. "We have to organize, form a community group, reach out to local shelters, and raise awareness. This was just the beginning."
Jonathan nodded, feeling the weight of their collective mission. "I want to bring together everyone who can help. We need to create a network, a coalition for these children."
As they discussed their plans, Jonathan's mind drifted back to his journey. The pain of losing Lily once, the helplessness he had felt, and the lessons he had learned along the way. He realized he had transformed from a man paralyzed by fear into a fighter fueled by love. "Do you remember when we first started this?" Jonathan said, his voice catching slightly. "I was so lost, so afraid of failing again. But tonight I felt strength in our unity. I've never felt anything like it."
Mia placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did more than just fight for Lily. You inspired all of us to stand together. You've taught us that we are stronger as a team."
Jonathan turned to look at Emma. "And your bravery in there, the way you rallied the kids, it was incredible. You're not just a friend. You're a force to be reckoned with." Emma smiled, a flicker of pride lighting her features. "We all did this," she insisted. "We're a family now, and we can't stop here." Lily, still nestled in Jonathan's arms, looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes. "Daddy, are we going to help more kids?" she asked, her voice small but resolute. "Yes, sweetheart," Jonathan replied, his heart swelling with affection for her bravery. "We're going to help as many as we can. This is just the beginning." As they gathered in the parking lot, watching the last of the children being taken to safety, Jonathan felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. He had faced his biggest fear and emerged not only with his daughter, but with a newfound purpose and a supportive community. Days turned into weeks, and the aftermath of the night's events rippled through their lives. The coalition they formed began to take shape, organizing community events, fundraisers, and awareness campaigns. Emma's strategic mind and Mia's infectious passion drew in volunteers from all corners of their town, each person eager to contribute to the cause. Jonathan found himself often reflecting on the night of the confrontation. He had learned that failure did not define him. It was how he stood up after falling that truly mattered. He had embraced the pain of his past and transformed it into a driving force for good. The bond between Mia, Emma, and him deepened, evolving from mere friendship into a steadfast partnership. They shared late nights filled with planning, laughter, and the occasional frustration, but through it all, they became a family united by their commitment to making a difference. Lily, too, blossomed in this new environment. She began attending community meetings with her father, her bright eyes shining with enthusiasm as she listened to stories of resilience and hope. Jonathan watched in awe as she began to find her voice, speaking up for the children who were still afraid, sharing her own experiences with a courage that belied her age. As the months passed, their efforts began to make a tangible impact. Local businesses joined in, donating resources and funds. Schools implemented programs focused on empowering children and educating them about their rights. The community rallied together, creating an atmosphere of support and solidarity. Yet even in their triumphs, Jonathan was reminded of the fragility of the situation. With every success, there remained the ever-looming darkness of those who sought to exploit the vulnerable. They received anonymous threats, taunts from those who had once been a part of the ringleader's operation, reminding Jonathan that the fight was far from over. However, instead of diminishing their resolve, these challenges only strengthened their cause. Jonathan found himself more committed than ever, standing shoulder to shoulder with Mia, Emma, and Lily. Together they faced the darkness, refusing to back down. One evening, as they sat around the table planning their next event, Jonathan paused, reflecting on how far they had come. "I used to think that fighting was all about strength and power," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "But I've learned that real strength lies in love, in community, and in standing up for what's right."
Mia nodded in agreement. "And it's about lifting each other up. We're all in this together."
As they continued to strategize, Jonathan's heart swelled with pride for the family they had become. He had faced his fears, transformed his pain into purpose, and forged a path of hope for others. They were no longer just individuals fighting against the darkness. They were a movement, a beacon of light illuminating the way for those still lost in shadows. In the quiet moments before sleep, Jonathan would often reflect on his journey. He had come to understand that every setback was an opportunity for growth, that love was the most potent weapon in their arsenal, and that true justice was not merely about winning battles, but about creating lasting change. As he watched Lily drift off to sleep, he felt a profound sense of peace. She was safe, and together they were making a difference. The journey had transformed him, and he knew that with each step forward, they would continue to confront the shadows, turning fear into courage and despair into hope. The night was still, but the future shimmered with promise. They had faced the storm and emerged stronger, ready to continue their fight for justice. Together as a family, united in their mission to protect the innocent and create a world where no child would ever have to face fear alone again. As the days turned into weeks, Jonathan felt a sense of purpose unfurling within him, a promise of resilience that seemed to echo through every corner of his life. The coalition they had formed was not merely a group of people, it had become a family, a testament to the strength of unity in the face of adversity. He often found himself reflecting on how far they had come from that chaotic night in the warehouse, where fear had once loomed large, now replaced by the warmth of hope and shared resolve. One evening, as he tucked Lily into bed, he marveled at how her laughter had returned, her spirit rekindled. She was no longer just a child who had experienced trauma. She was a beacon of light, inspiring others to find their voices. "Daddy, when can we help more kids?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. "Soon, sweetheart," he replied, his heart swelling with pride. "We have a lot of work ahead of us, but we'll do it together. You're part of this and your voice matters." In the following weeks, they organized community events, each one more successful than the last. The stories shared, the lives touched. It was a ripple effect that reached far beyond what any of them had imagined. Schools began to teach children about their rights, and local businesses rallied to support their mission. Jonathan's heart swelled with gratitude for the community that had embraced their cause, uniting in a shared vision. Mia, Emma, and Jonathan would often gather after their events, sharing laughter and stories of resilience. They had forged an unbreakable bond through their shared mission, each of them bringing unique strengths to the table. Jonathan watched as Emma blossomed into a leader, her confidence a guiding light for others. Mia's unwavering passion ignited a fire within the community, inspiring countless volunteers to join their ranks.
Yet, amid the victories, Jonathan remained acutely aware of the shadows that still lingered. He recalled the threats they had received, reminders of the darkness that sought to silence their efforts. But instead of cowering in fear, he felt a surge of determination. They would not be deterred. They would stand firm, fueled by the unwavering belief that every child deserved safety, love, and a chance to thrive.
One afternoon, as they set up for a fundraising event in the park, Jonathan noticed a group of children playing nearby. Their laughter rang out like music, a stark contrast to the fear that had once gripped him. He turned to Mia and Emma, a newfound resolve settling over him. "This is why we do what we do," he said, gesturing toward the children. "They deserve to be free, to laugh without fear." Mia nodded, her eyes reflecting the same determination. "And we'll make sure they are. We've already come so far, but there's still work to do." As the event unfolded, Jonathan spoke to the gathered crowd, sharing their journey and the importance of their mission. He felt the weight of their collective hope resting on his shoulders. "We are not just fighting for our children, we are fighting for every child who has ever felt afraid or alone. Together we can create a world where every child is safe." The crowd erupted in applause, the energy electric with shared purpose. In that moment, Jonathan felt a deep connection with everyone present, a sense of belonging that reaffirmed his belief in the power of community. They were all part of something greater, a movement that would not only protect the vulnerable, but also inspire change across generations. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the park, Jonathan took a moment to breathe it all in. He had transformed from a man paralyzed by fear into a father, a friend, and a leader, fueled by love. The journey had not been easy, but it had forged him into someone who understood the true meaning of strength. Later that night, as he lay beside Lily, he reflected on their journey. The pain of loss and the fear of failure had been heavy burdens to bear, but they had led him to this moment, this life filled with purpose and love. He had learned that true strength did not come from power or dominance, but from the courage to stand up for others, to be vulnerable, and to embrace the bonds of community. "Daddy, are we going to keep helping kids forever?" Lily's voice broke through his thoughts, her innocence a reminder of everything they were fighting for. He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "As long as there are children who need us, we will always help. That's our promise." In the quiet of the night, Jonathan made a vow to himself. He would continue to fight, to advocate for those who could not speak for themselves. He envisioned a future where no child would ever have to face fear alone, a world where love and compassion triumphed over darkness. Months later, as they stood together at the opening of a new community center dedicated to supporting at-risk children, Jonathan felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. The center was a tangible symbol of their efforts, a place where children could find safety, support, and love. As he watched Lily play with her friends, his heart swelled with pride. In that moment, he realized that their journey was not just about fighting against the shadows, it was about creating a brighter future. They had transformed their pain into purpose, and from that purpose, new possibilities had blossomed. "Look at what we've built," Emma said, standing beside him, her eyes shining with pride. "This is just the beginning." Jonathan nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest. "Yes, it is, and together we can continue to make a difference." As they looked out at the smiling faces of the children, Jonathan felt a profound sense of hope. They had come together to face their fears, to turn despair into action. And now they stood on the brink of something extraordinary. In the end, Jonathan understood that life would always present challenges, but it was how they faced those challenges that defined them. He had discovered the power of love, community, and resilience, and with every step forward, he knew they were paving the way for a brighter tomorrow. As he took Lily's hand, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The journey had changed him, transformed him into someone who would always fight for justice and compassion. They had faced the storm and emerged stronger, ready for whatever lay ahead.
"Together we can change the world," he whispered to Lily, as they walked toward the future, united in their mission and fueled by the promise of hope.
In that moment, Jonathan understood that every act of kindness, every voice raised in support, was a step toward healing. They were not just creating a community, they were fostering a legacy of love that would echo through generations. The night was still, but the future shimmered with promise. And as they moved forward, hand in hand, they embraced the possibilities that lay ahead, ready to confront the shadows and illuminate the world with their unwavering light.
Now, I want to hear from you. How did this journey touch your heart? Have you ever faced something similar? Leave your comment below and let's share stories together that can inspire others. And if you like this message and believe it can make a difference in someone's life, don't forget to like the video and share it with whoever needs to hear this today. Finally, subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell to keep following more stories like this. Your participation is what makes this space so special.